Welcome to the Pure Victory Podcast, full of hot tips to help you win at sex, conquer porn, and find purpose in staying free forever. Here are your hosts, Matt Cline and Braden Hafner.
Hey, welcome back to Pure Victory Podcast. Matt and Braden here, and excited just to see things growing, looking at the numbers of downloads and just hearing back from people. Man, I heard one guy, he's Alex, just blessed me so much. He's
that
like,
was a great quote. Yeah.
it was so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. He's like, I can just feel the presence of God in these episodes, and they bring me closer to Christ. Or he said, Jesus is using them to draw me in closer to him. And I was like, wow,
man.
this is amazing.
Yeah, I know that's for God's glory. Because honestly, this is a bunker down here, and we just do our thing, and it's God does what He does. So I'm thankful.
He does. And today we're talking to Chris Scheele with Forerunner Financial. We've been we met a few years ago at church, and him and his wife Michelle. He got two kids. They're from the metropolis of Devon, Alberta, close to Edmonton here. And Chris, yeah, we connected when we first met, and I just love what you do, and we're excited to partner with you and get word out about what you do with Forerunner Financial. Which is a little bit different than most financial companies, I think, and I really like it. And just talk about the tie-in between financial stress and productivity and escaping and sexual vices. And so this is going to be good and exciting and different than what we've ever done. So thanks for being here, Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Matt. You're totally right. We connected, like not even sure how we originally met for coffee that first time at Waves, but had a great conversation, and ever since it's just I've enjoyed being a part of a small part of what you do, and supporting you where I can, and it's really cool.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for doing that, and it's cool just getting to know you a little bit here and hearing about your passion in this area, and we'd love to hear a little bit briefly, I guess, about kind of why you are passionate, why you're doing what you're doing. And specifically, we're having you on today to talk about the link maybe between certain stressors and how that affects our life on multiple levels, right? And whether that's a link to different vices or addiction. And so, yeah, just maybe share a little bit about why you're passionate, why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So like my why I'm in this industry and doing this, really, I feel called by God to be teaching and guiding people with their financial lives. And when I looked at the financial industry, I was actually so turned off of ever being a part of it. And it wasn't until I realized I could put my unique spin on it that I was like, okay, I'm all in on this plan. So yeah, what I do that's maybe a little bit different is I don't do the traditional like investment and insurance sales. I do the financial planning and coaching. So it's really just coming alongside, partnering with my clients, finding out where they're at in their life today, where they want to be, and giving them a roadmap, giving them a plan to get there without any expectation or any bias of recommending certain products or solutions to them. So I believe it's a fair and unbiased, like objective way to get financial advice. If you're a consumer. So rather than, nothing against the traditional industry of finance, it wasn't for me. Like, I don't want to be tied by the products that I sell. I would rather the clients can choose where they want to get their investments and insurance, and just kind of be their guide, helping them create that plan to reach their goals.
Yeah, I love it. I love not having the bias, because you talk to one insurance guy and they'll speak negatively about the other company, and then vice versa. And it's like, well, there's pros and cons maybe to both, but you don't have that bias, and I really like it. And I've heard from people the testimonies from your clients just of the impact that you've had, which is neat. I think I've heard that I don't know how many times, but a few times for sure. And so it's pretty cool. And so for our listeners, or for you listeners listening, Chris is helping us obviously produce the podcast through sponsorship with Forerunner Financial. And so I would love for you, Chris, just to speak to, why did you want to do that? Why did you want to partner with Pure Victory Podcast and help get the word out?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to that first time we met, Matt, and just like way that we connected, and I've been following along with what you're doing. And yeah, I know the impact that porn can have on somebody's life. And I think what you guys are doing is totally unique, like kind of similar to the way I do things. It's unique. And when you see somebody that really just like owns that corner and like takes that challenge and goes for it in their own way, like you can't help but want to support. And that's how I feel about you guys. Like, you know, I have a little bit of my own story of like looking at porn in the past and then overcoming that. And, you know, for me, it really could have been the end of my marriage, maybe, if I didn't change my ways. And so, you know, luckily that wasn't the case. And yeah, I'm very fortunate and feel very blessed that that's not my reality, but I know the impact it can have. And I think what you guys are doing is so impactful for those that have, that have this addiction to porn.
I love hearing people's story and why they are not just interested, but passionate, and why they want to see the word get out, help others. And I think it's so great because often we have that part of our life and then we want to turn around and help others. And we have different ways we do that. And you're an example of that, you know, so thank you for doing what you're doing. And in particular, the financial component, I wanted to get into that and move into that a little bit because I think often as guys, we can view life and as boxes. You know, we have these compartments, and you know, in the financial aspect, it's one box we feel, but really it isn't, because it can really filter in other areas. If we have stress or brokenness or breakdown in this area, it impacts so much of our lives, right? And we like to view things a little bit more holistically than, hey, it's just one little dusty box in the corner of my life. It really impacts a lot. And we'll get to the link with other things, but you know, speak to that, Chris, because you probably have dealt with clients and people where you've seen how financial stresses or financial breakdown has caused a lot of issue, not just individually, but I'm sure marital issues. I'm sure problems as far as just being able to, you know, serve in their local community. Because when you're really inward focused, if you're in a point of crisis, so you can't really look outward to help others. So there's so many areas this touches, right?
Yeah, totally. There are. And I mean, the biggest one that we see is the relational impact. So specifically, you know, in a marriage, if you have a partner, you know, it is one of the leading causes of divorce or separation, is like this fighting about money. And so as men, I think we tend to take more ownership of the finances. And maybe it doesn't come down to like the managing of the finances. I find that often goes either way. Like typically one person takes the lead in managing the day-to-day finances. It's not necessarily the man, but I do feel like the man in the relationship tends to feel more responsibility as provider. And so like if they're not living up to like their job of that they feel of like providing for their family, it has such a big impact. And so that's one thing. I mean, obviously how we manage and steward our finances, our wealth on a day-to-day, on a yearly basis, like is so important. And having just a communication in a relationship about money, like I just can't speak enough about that, the importance of having clear, open communication. So, you know, when you get married, you know, you're creating this union, and you know, it's for better, for worse, till death do us part. And so with that teaching, with that understanding, we know that it's better to do life together as a couple, and our finances are part of that. So there are many families, many couples that I help to actually create a plan to combine their finances and start working together with them for the first time. And I really see that as like a must do for couples. Like, it doesn't mean you need joint accounts necessarily, but you need transparency. You need a plan that has you working together, and you need to talk about it. So that's probably the one of the big things that I see I'd like to share about.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a month or two ago, I was with this couple, and the guy was doing a full disclosure of his kind of sexual past with his wife. And once he had done it, it was within 2 minutes probably. They were talking about the financial stresses and how she put stress on him, and then she's like, "Oh, I don't. It's just stress in general." And he's like, "Yeah, but I carry that." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's a direct link." Because it went fast to financial stress and the lack of communication. And so do you find that a lot, that there is that lack of communication, and that there is kind of even like it is so important, because people a lot of times will say that porn use is an intimacy disorder. And so when you don't feel attached, you feel detached, and so you escape just to numb yourself. And so it is important. But do you find that a lot in a lot of couples and marriages, that there is kind of miscommunication about my finances?
Yes, for sure. For sure. We tend to just kind of take our responsibilities, like naturally they kind of get divided, and it's like one spouse is responsible for this part, and it's just kind of like this unwritten, undiscussed kind of roles are just created. And oftentimes, like, I mean, as you guys see, when you walk with somebody through like a full disclosure, something like that, and you're kind of there, it's a very challenging role as that person in the room with the couple. Like it's mediator, like you're just like an unbiased third party trying to help them, trying to get them to discuss it. But honestly, having that person in the room can change everything. So you go from every time you talk about money to fighting about money, like introducing somebody else to help guide the conversation, bring it back. That can really like be a game changer. And it doesn't even have to be like a difficult situation. Like I remember one couple I worked with, like they both had strong opinions about money, and they were separate. Like they were different areas. Like one was like, no, we need to manage and be aware of every dollar, where every penny goes. We need to have a plan for it. And the other, she was like, well, why do we need to go that far? Like, let's just live our life. And every time they talked about it, it became an argument. And so when I got involved, it was a tough, it was a tough couple of meetings. Like there was some heavy tension in there, but eventually we got through. We were able to have a conversation in a way that they had not previously been able to do, and that allowed some breakthrough. And the couple ended up, like there were some sacrifices by both of them, and they created a plan that would work for both of them. And like that, man, just such a great success story. Like I still see them today, and they're like, yeah, like you changed our life with money. You changed our relationship. Our marriage is better because of what you helped us do.
Right. Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, I think, and then you help people engage in those conversations, they start to get some of the root issues. Like, often we think it's the surface level component of it. It's just money is our issue, but it's the values that underlie that, right? Like those values that we don't know, maybe our upbringing, our family of origin, we saw money a certain way. Maybe money was viewed with fear. Maybe money was viewed as security. All these different things. Like I know one thing from my wife and I, one value that we discovered that was, I mean, we both want to be successful in this area. We share that value, but Kristen, my wife, she had a value of money being security. So it was important for her that we, I mean, she worked really hard, put herself through school, 2 degrees, and she paid for it all, every penny, and worked really hard to do that. And here I come into marriage, a little bit of school debts, and my value with money is a little bit different. But one of the things that we always struggled with is she didn't understand, for me, why when we bought something, I always wanted the best. I wanted high quality things, right? And she's like, well, let's be more frugal. Let's find things that are more cost effective. And we didn't understand on this thing why we're different here. And I actually had to do some work on my own. And I realized when I was growing up, I didn't have the nicest stuff. And I remember like going back to hockey. Played, on top teams, but I was always that kid that had the junk equipment, right? I remember I had this one helmet. Man, it was a dusty helmet. It was the space bucket, I called it. It was embarrassing. I was embarrassed to put that thing on. And and all my other teammates had the best stuff, right? And here I am. I had to play the best because I didn't want to look like I was just a terrible player based on what I was wearing. And so this is a value I had. I think I made a vow at that point, like I don't want to feel that embarrassment anymore. When I grow up, when I become an adult, I'm going to have good stuff, good quality stuff, because I don't want to feel that anymore. And so when I learned that, I'm like, oh, that's why this is important for me. And then Kristen can empathize with me. Oh, I get that. So we found a kind of a common ground in our values, of what matters here. Now I'm a little bit more frugal because I understand her value there, and she does get why we, it's important we buy good quality things so they don't break down. But yeah, I think it's the values that sometimes we just don't put our finger on, right? We think it's a surface level, but let's go deeper. And I mean, speak to that, Chris. I'm sure that you've seen
Yeah.
lots of that.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, there's so much of our belief system around money that is formed in childhood, and whether it's family experiences or the way our parents communicate or don't communicate about money. But yeah, there's very common like money scripts they're called that most of us have some tendencies towards. It's either like money status, money vigilance, money worship, or money avoidance. And some of us fall into multiple areas of those as well. But it's just totally normal to have a belief system about money that is like almost a subconscious belief system that's created through childhood. And the great thing is we all have the ability to rewrite those beliefs about money, and we have the ability to merge them with our spouse or partner and create new beliefs as a couple about money, and then instill those values into our children. And that's like, I just believe there's so much power in that if we can come together and do that together. And so like you said, Braden, the way you discussed it with your wife, you reflected, you kind of realized, I feel this way because of XYZ. You point a finger on it, and then you could see that she comes from a different place, and together you formed a new, or at least some kind of understanding together. Like, so cool.
Yeah, and you talk about money scripts, and then I was thinking of shame scripts too. We call them shame patterns in Pure Freedom Journey, but a lot of people call them shame scripts because there's so much shame that we have around money. And it could even be like our status in society, that we think that this is who I am, or I'm this kind of person. And if we have a lot, or if we have all the nice things, then we have to keep up with that. And if we don't, then we're a failure, and then you should start beating yourself up and want to escape. Or if you don't have a lot, then you just think that's who you are. You're not as good as other people. Do you see that a lot? Do you see shame in people? And can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like it definitely presents in different ways. Like we all kind of carry that or feel that differently, I think, when it comes to money, but it comes up for sure. Whether it's like overspending, or, not feeling like you're not earning enough, or not, being diligent with saving for the future. Like there are so many places that shame comes into the money equation. And it can be a very, very difficult thing to overcome. I think.
Yeah, and the thing about shame is it can start somewhere, like maybe with money, but then it can overtake a life if we don't identify it,
Right.
because it becomes our belief system.
Well, and it's so interesting because like shame, we have shame with some other things, and that can filter over into or come out of certain beliefs that we have, even based in money or other things. And so it's interesting because, I mean, we view life in a more holistic way. So if we have shame in one area, it's very likely that we may have shame in other areas too, because it's filtered into those areas as well. And it's like, yeah, it's a script that's running in the background, right? So I mean, I think that's often why people, if the topic of money comes up, they can almost get a little maybe oppositional defiant if you have people telling them what to do, or even want to run away from that conversation, where they don't want to talk about anything because it touches some of that hurt, that pain, that shame, and it can really affect them.
And I think that probably connects to, why talking about money in the family group has not been, it hasn't been done in past generations. Like maybe they couldn't point anything to it, but it likely has something to do with those underlying feelings of shame that, like, we don't discuss money. It's a private issue. It's a private thing. Like, you can't ask your parents how much money they make, or how much we are we saving, do we have debt? Like, so I think that, similar to a lot of things in life, you guys probably see this with what you do, but as soon as we can name it and we can call it out and discuss it openly, it has no more power over us. And I think that's one of the, or less power over us, maybe is a better way to put it. But
Yeah.
when we can talk openly about money, we have the opportunity to grow our relationship with money and change it for the better.
That's why I love what you do, because you could teach people a financial plan or get them on an insurance program or plan or whatever, but it's the beliefs that wouldn't change. And so you're actually getting to the heart and dealing with someone's heart and beliefs and helping couples communicate. And it's really cool. It's just deep, right?
Yeah.
What do you see as some hindrances to people changing?
I'll communicate this to prospects or to people that are asking me, like, how's your business going or whatever. I'll say, like, until people are ready, they're not ready. Like, and I can walk with them and kind of nurture them and help them a little bit on the way. But like, until they decide, like, I'm ready to tackle this, it's really hard to make changes in your financial life. And so often, those changes are brought on by a life circumstance change. So getting married, for instance, or losing a loved one, or having a kid, buying a house. Like, big formative life changes are often what it takes for people to take a look at their finances and maybe change something with them. And I wish I had a better answer or a way to kind of speed up that cycle, maybe, or change the cycle of it so that people could come sooner. But ultimately, like, until you're ready, until that motivation is there, it's really hard to do anything.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, coming from my perspective, dealing with a lot of marriages, and we see this a lot where people get married and they're very entrenched in their beliefs. They don't have a lot of wiggle room sometimes in those areas. We've seen couples get married and they have this understanding, maybe not on a conscious level, but subconsciously, it's my money and your money. We're not meshing. I'm going to have my, expenses, my account. You're going to have yours. And often there's this power dynamic at play where, say, the husband makes more money and he feels that gives him license to spend more, or to not talk about what he's using money for. And then his wife feels like a little bit like she's a doormat, like, I don't have any say. And vice versa. We see both, right? And often this just erodes intimacy in marriage, because we actually call it, when there's money going out that the other spouse doesn't know about. We actually call that financial infidelity. And that actually has more of a damaging effect on marriages a similar impact, I should say, to often infidelity, because there's a lack of trust. There's a trust that's being broken. And I know I faced this when I was, when we first got married, and it was on a smaller level, but I would just, hot summer day, coming home from work, I'd stop at 7-Eleven and grab a Slurpee. And I would do that a few times, and I wouldn't tell Kristen about that. And while it's a very small expense for her, because she's like, what's this? And I'm not telling her, that's breaking trust. It doesn't matter the amount. I'm breaking trust, right? And then so we had to find a third way, not my way or her way, but a third way, so that we could move forward in this. And so a lot of couples face that, where they're so entrenched in this understanding, and where maybe they're spending money that the other doesn't know about. But have you seen that? Have you seen that kind of financial infidelity? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, you did an amazing job describing it, explaining it. Obviously, you know it deeply from a marriage, standpoint. The one thing I wanted to touch on, like, hiding expenses, or just, not feeling like you have to communicate that can be such it just, erodes your trust, your, like, your accountability. It's no longer there. And, I'll share a brief story from my own personal life. Like, when my wife and I got married, and, we started doing life together, doing our money together. So from pretty much day one, it was like, we're in this together. However, there was this underlying, like, feelings of like, well, I don't agree with you spending your money, our money, on that thing. Or when she would be like, oh, I don't agree with you spending your money on that thing. So for us, what that looked like was, I spend too much money on archery equipment. I'm a big archery hunter, so Cabela's, Jimbo's. I spend a lot of money on archery gear and hunting equipment, and so it's a pretty expensive hobby. So she would often be like, "Well, why'd you spend so much on that?" And for her, she loves gardening and trees and plants and flowers, like just adores it. So every year, like this time of year, I know because she just went shopping for flowers this week, like hundreds of dollars on flowers that are going to last for 5 months. New trees every year. We used to fight about this stuff, but then we realized, we stepped back, we discussed it. Okay, this aligns with your values. This aligns with like, as long as you're spending our money in a way that aligns with your values or our values, I support you. There's no longer a fight about, just because I wouldn't spend my money on flowers, just because she wouldn't spend her money on hunting equipment. We have this understanding, this trust has been built, that we support each other because it's clear. Like, it's been a tested value. It's like, it's no longer just like I bought a Slurpee. I bought a new bike today. Like, if it's something that directly impacts the quality of your life, and it's something that, helps you be a better version of yourself, like something that you truly value, whether that's an experience or an item, whatever that is, you should be spending your money in that way. Like, life is short, live it fully. Like, we are called to do something special on our time on earth here. And, we all have unique gifts and abilities, and we should be investing financially into those. And so whether that looks like hobbies or your career, or, you're starting a business, whatever that is, we should support our spouses in investing in those things. And then on the flip side, like, if I spend money at McDonald's or Tim Hortons, I hope she calls me out on it and says, like, hey, Chris, did that add any value to your life, getting that Big Mac today? Like, no, it actually made my life a little bit worse, and I won't do it again. Thank you.
And then you felt shame.
Yes. And then I felt shame for a minute, but
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
I remember when I was first married, I had a credit card or two or whatever that I brought in that were mine before we were married. And so I went and I did that. Some fast food thing. I spent like $3 or something, but it was on a credit card where she couldn't see it. And I actually had a dream, and it was like I could see in the dream me paying at the window, and just God saying something like, "Don't do that," or "Stop that," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And it was funny because I told Braden this a month or two ago. We're wrapping up our playoffs in hockey, and we only had a few games left, but I only had one stick. You got to have two, and the one stick I had wasn't that good. So I was like, "Oh man, I got to go spend like how much money on a hockey stick? They're not cheap." And so I knew I was gonna have to, and I just had this thought. I'm like, I don't want to tell Louise. And then I'm like, no, wait a second. Like, I'm not gonna do that. I just had the thought, but it was interesting to think through that. And then when I told her, and this is the cool thing about it, is when I told her, like, hey, I got to go get a stick. She's like, perfect. Yeah, I want you to go get it. And when we hide things, we don't get that moment of intimacy and closeness because there's not the communication. She also has just spent hundreds of dollars, well, actually more than that, on her garden because we didn't have a garden bed. She went and bought the whole garden bed and all the dirt and the plants and all of that stuff. And so she's built that and she loves it. And so yeah, it's a bill, and we were going through that right now, but I was saying a couple of days ago, like, I love the joy that it brings you, and we can see her just having a great time with it. And so it is cool when you communicate that and you don't have that hiddenness or that shame. And I wanna ask one more question, maybe Brad, you have one more too, I don't know, but guys in porn often will disqualify themselves from leading because, like, look at what I've done. I've wrecked our marriage, or I've betrayed her. How could I lead in other areas? And so I was just talking about this with someone last week, and so I want your opinion on that. If a guy is out there and he's hooked on porn and he's seen the damage that's caused his wife, but then there's a financial leak going on in their marriage, or there's miscommunication in marriage, what would you say to that guy who's hesitant to leading because he feels like a hypocrite?
Hmm. Yeah, I would say your past does not disqualify you. I mean, you have every right. You've actually have the charge to take control, to be in control of your financial life. And so, um, yeah, your past, whatever that is, does not impact the future and the decisions you're making about your money today. So, yeah, I would just start with that strongly, and then, you have, we all have the opportunity to improve or change our life, and it can start with the smallest thing. So, it can be so overwhelming at times to look at the big picture, and whether that's a mountain of debt and various credit cards, or whether that's like no retirement savings, or it's just hard to get by every month. Like there's no money left over at the end of each month. Like whatever your situation is, it can seem daunting. Start small. One little thing, whether that's like bringing some awareness to your money, trying to be more intentional about one part of your financial life. I think that has to be the starting point. Is we have to bring our intention towards it if we want to try to make a change.
I love that. Yeah, I think that we need to have the intentionality behind, like you said, because we can't just assume that these pieces are going to fall in place the way that we need them to. And so I think that's great. Anybody that is hearing this, and maybe you do have financial stress, or there's some debt, or there's some issue there, get the help that you need, but start the discussions. If you're an individual, same thing, get the help you need. If you're a married couple, get the help you need to begin the transparency process of revealing what's going on in a deeper sense, but also your plan. And it's so great. Hey, Chris, like when you get as a couple, even when you get on the same page in this area, like we found this, my wife and I, it used to be an area of friction for us, an area of, a lot of conflict, and that's very typical for a lot of marriages, but getting on the same page and working at it and finding it to become a strength in our marriage, the different skills we bring in this area, it is like a breath of fresh air to our marriage, to be on the same page. And so the last question I have is maybe just paint a picture of hope, because I think a lot of people, when it comes to finances, they feel very hopeless. They feel like they're just repeating the patterns of the past, maybe don't know a way out. And I know that those things aren't true. And I know you know that too, Chris. So just maybe speak to that. What's the hope people can have in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is hope no matter your situation. So, just like we said, to take the first step, start small, but start to dream again. Like that's the biggest, like, if I could point to one thing, like the turning point with working with a couple or a client, it's like when they go from this point of despair to like starting to dream and be like, oh man, can you imagine if our life looked like this one day? When that hope is restored in their heart, that's like the turning point for sure with everybody. So that's what it takes. That's the first point. Starting to believe in yourself, those small steps, showing that you can change your financial life, and then building on those steps. And eventually, as you take these little micro steps, you're going to start to, the hope is going to start to well up in you, and then you're going to change your outlook, and you're going to realize that it is possible. And there's no financial strategy or like solution. There's no investment or insurance product out there that can do that for you. This is a heart change, and this is a decision you need to make for you. And so that's where it starts with. Later on, the financial planning process and investments and insurance could be a part of that, and should be a part of that for most of you. But to start with, we need to believe that we can change.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So where can people reach you? Who can, like, is there a geographical limit? I think people anywhere can reach out for coaching, and what would be the
Yeah.
first
I
step?
mean, yeah, if it's just coaching, for sure, wherever you're located, but financial planning wise, Canadians, so anywhere across Canada, I can work with you. Yeah, you can find me at forerunnerfinancial.ca. You can find me on LinkedIn, or yeah, that's probably the two best places to find me. And yeah, when I think this is a great fit, like for both of us, because I really enjoy working with couples, young families specifically. So, you know, if you're in your 40s, maybe your 30s, and you're married, you have a family, I love helping people like you. And if you're outside of that, still reach out. We can have a conversation and see if it's a good fit as well.
Thank you, Chris. And so everybody listening out there, coaching anywhere and financial planning aspect here in Canada. But we so appreciate, Chris. We need more like you out there helping people in this regard, because finances is, I would say, one of the bigger stressors in life, but it doesn't have to be. And people like you are showing that and helping people one step at a time move towards freedom in this area, but not only that, to be successful and to reach their goals that they want to achieve. So thank you for taking the time, Chris. So appreciate you. So appreciate what you're doing. And for everybody out there listening, same thing. We are in your corner. We're cheering you on and we're praying you on. And thanks for taking part in this. And if this is an area for you that you want help in, get the help you need. Reach out to guys like Chris, but take the steps. Make the choice in your life that, hey, I'm going to start. I'm just going to start. And I think that's really going to help you move forward, because I think it's, pushing that rock up the mountain seems pretty daunting at times, but one push at a time. And I think that, you get that momentum and you get excited again. So we'll leave that with you. Thanks everybody for listening again, and we'll check in with you next time.
Thanks for listening. If you would like to hear more, please visit purevictorypodcast.com to subscribe. This podcast was made possible by the generous donations of our subscribers. If you would like to help support the cause financially, once again, please visit purevictorypodcast.com.